Mama, welcome to the Mrs. Mummy PhD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Michelle Gibbs, and this podcast exists to help scholarly mamas like you to achieve your life and academic goals without sacrificing what matters most. Here, we're changing the overwhelm, juggle, struggle narrative around what it means to be a mama on an academic journey to one of empowerment, fulfillment, and purposeful success. So how do we successfully navigate these journeys? Well, first, we need the space to embrace this unique blend. Let's begin by saying yes to creating a life that feels as good on the inside as it looks on the outside, because that's when we truly become purposefully whole. So get ready for the most non-traditional, unconventional, and revolutionary approach to PhD motherhood, because one thing I have learned over my many years of experience on this journey is that if you want something different, you have to do something different. But you must be brave enough to think differently first. So, Mama, are you in? Fabulous! Let's begin. These are our journeys of becoming. Hey mamas, welcome back to the podcast. I've got an exciting guest episode for you this week. I discovered Blessing through the PhD race on Instagram, and that's where she was sharing the real story of completing her PhD in sustainability management while she was working as a policy analyst and raising her daughter. Her posts are about the actual experience of navigating a PhD and helping you to run your own PhD race, and that really resonated with me. So it is so wonderful to be able to sit down with her today as Dr. Blessing Adeniyi, which is amazing because she's finished her PhD and has graduated, and I'm so excited to be able to celebrate this with her. And I find it so fascinating how we can operate in this space where we may be talking about a complex journey, doing a PhD is a complex journey in one moment. And then in the other moment, it's, like we're going to talk about in this episode, it's all the things that come with being a mama. So I am really curious about Dr. Blessing's experience because I feel like we've both discovered things about this journey that no one talks about in these kind of academic circles. You know what I mean? Like the way that motherhood actually changes how we think about our research, or how we've had to completely reinvent ourselves or reinvent productivity for ourselves because those kind of like 6, 7, 8 hour writing blocks just don't exist for us anymore. And so I have a feeling that we're going to get into some really interesting conversations today. In fact, I know that we will. The kind of conversations that I wish I could have had with someone when I was in the thick of it. Because honestly, I think that what we've both kind of realized in chatting with each other is that being a scholarly mama isn't just about survival, but there's something actually pretty powerful about who we become in this process. And so without further ado, I want to get into this conversation with Dr. Blessing Adeniyi from the PhD race. Let's tune in. Dr. Blessing. Oh, that sounds so good to say. I'm so excited to have you on the show. I know you are juggling so many things. You're a toddler mom. You are a full-time sustainability policy analyst. You've got your brand newly conferred PhD in sustainability management. And actually, before we get into the conversation today, I am so excited for you. And I really wanted to just celebrate your completing your PhD and just tell us what that feels like right now in this moment to finished. Finally, after all this, you've passed your defense, you've graduated. Like, how does that feel?
Thank you, Dr. Michelle, for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I've looked forward to this for weeks. And so, yes, I'm happy to be here and absolutely excited to have been done with my PhD. I still can't believe it, honestly, because I wake up some days and I'm like, oh, I should be doing something, or oh, I need to go to the library for something. But I really don't have any reason to go to the library.
Yeah.
It's really exciting. I don't think I have the words to describe it right now, but it's definitely a huge like mental load has been lifted off my shoulders. And yes, I'm absolutely enjoying this post PhD version of me. And yeah.
Yeah. When we were talking earlier, you were saying that it feels like an identity shift. Like, describe that feeling for us.
So I think um, it's the identity shift has been, going from thinking about myself as a student and not really feeling like I have that part of my life like wrapped up completely. And so like being having that one leg in school, one leg in the workplace feeling. I feel like that shift has now been completed, and I can say that chapter is closed, and now I can actually get on with the rest of my life. I know we shouldn't be thinking about it like that, but that's how it feels. For me. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, lovely to celebrate this moment with you. And I'm so happy that, you're here at this. This feels like the absolute best time to have you on the show. So I'm so happy to celebrate that with you. So I just wanted to go back. I know this feels like eons ago because, you all finished now, but I want to take you back to PhD life, like navigating PhD life as a mama. And I know, like we've mentioned, you've been juggling lots of hats and roles and titles and commitments. But describe for the listeners, like what did a typical day look like for you when you were doing your PhD? And how did you manage to transition between all these different roles, like as a mom, as a professional, as a PhD student?
Okay. I love that question because it took a long time to get to the place where we actually had a schedule that worked. But my days were packed. So I'll say they're a little less intense now that I'm done. But I'll describe a typical day as a work from home day. Because that was like 60% of my week. So I'd wake up at about 6 a.m. for some quiet time, some alone time, get my daughter's lunch packed, and then try to get her and myself ready by 7 a.m. And then my workday usually started at 7 a.m., but I had permission to drop off my daughter between 7:30 and 7:45. And so we would do that, drop her off at daycare, come back and be back at my desk at 8 a.m., and then just work up until 3 p.m. And then I would head to the public library and be there by 3:30, and work on my research up until 6 when my husband and my daughter will come pick me up. And then we will go home for family time, dinner, and then at 8 o'clock, I'll go to the home office and just work on my research for about 2 to 3 more hours while my husband would do the night routine for our daughter. So that was typically our like weekday schedule. I would usually do my daughter's night routine on the weekends just so that it wasn't my husband doing it all through. But scheduling our days like that gave me about 4 to 5 hours to work on my research every day. And so I would get like 20 hours every week, which was something that we didn't have until we started to schedule, until I started to schedule my days like that, because it was more like I was going with the vibe at first, like, oh yeah, I'll get 1 hour here, 2 hours here, but it wasn't consistent. And that wasn't helping me make any progress at all. But yeah, I'll say that was my typical day. It was very rigidly scheduled. I mean, sometimes we would have to run errands like after the work day, and I would like miss a library session, but I would usually go do a night session like every day for the most part. Yeah.
You know what? I hear that because honestly, like there are times where you just feel like you just want to go to bed. You just want to
Mm-hmm.
go to bed. You just want to sit and watch television or
Yep.
something that is brainless, that doesn't require any brain energy, especially after a day at work. And so consistency kind of like offers some buffer or some resilience against that kind of challenge because it's something that it becomes part of the routine, and you don't have to dig as deep to kind of do what you need to do, um,
Exactly.
because it just becomes part of the routine. So I definitely hear that. So your platform, which we mentioned in the intro, the PhD race, shares the authentic highs and lows that you experience on this journey. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more, particularly around the challenging moment that you may have faced as a scholarly mama and how you worked through that because those real life stories are so valuable for our listeners who may also be experiencing similar struggles. So talk me through like a particular challenging moment that you faced and how you worked through it as a scholarly mama.
I like that question. So right before going on maternity leave, so towards the end of my being pregnant, I was under a lot of pressure. I was 2 years into, almost 3 years into my degree at that point, and I hadn't done my thesis proposal defense. So you're supposed to do a proposal, right, and then defend it. And I was trying to race against the clock to do all of that, like finish writing the proposal, set a date with the whole of my committee, and then defend it, and then go on maternity leave. And I was starting to get stressed. I wasn't in a good place mentally, and I wasn't. It was starting to show. My supervisor noticed. And she said to me, "When your baby," said to me, I think I'm trying to remember exactly or close to exactly what she said. She said, "When your baby comes, you'll be everything to her. You need to be mentally and emotionally present for that. Your research will wait and it's not going anywhere. But for now, you need to take the time and just take a break. Stop thinking about it in terms of, oh, I have a timeline and, oh, I have to meet the timeline. Or if I don't do that, the world is going to explode, right? So those were the words I needed to hear at that time. And so I just dropped everything, literally focused on getting ready for my baby. And I try not to work or I mean, it was hard to not think about it, but I tried not to work on it like actively until the end of my maternity leave. So around the 10th or 11th month. So I took a year off. That's like the norm in Canada. And I didn't start work on a proposal until that 10th or 11th month. My mom was back staying with us because she had come initially when my daughter was born. And then my daughter had a routine. So there was more, I was in a better mental and emotional space to actually start to work on my defense. And I came back from maternity leave in April of 2023, and I defended my proposal in May of 2023. And that just, it was easier. Like I was in a better space, right? Because I had taken my supervisor's advice. So that was really challenging. And that taught me the importance of giving myself grace. And also the fact that even though timelines might not go according to how it was originally planned, things will still work out in the end.
Yeah, no, I hear that. And it's lovely to hear that you were able to really take that time away and had the support of your supervisor to do that. I know that's not always the case for some people, but when you do have it, it really makes a difference because you have someone who gets it, someone who understands the juggling act that you're navigating and just gives you that permission to take a break, take a step back, look after yourself, give your daughter or those who have sons, your son, the best possible chance of coming into this world healthy and whole. And yeah, I loved hearing that story of how you were able to take that break. And a year off is amazing. That is awesome.
I know. I'm so glad I live in Canada because some people even get up to 18 months. So you can choose between a year and 18 months. And that's just amazing that mothers get that. I would say as an aside that one of the reasons why my supervisor was able to empathize with me was because she had her first son while she was doing her PhD as well. And
Oh,
so
wow.
she had that same experience, and I think that's one of the important like one of the good things about having someone who is like you or has gone through similar experiences as you have, because they can always empathize with you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is awesome. And a lot of people, because just like you, when I had my maternity breaks, I didn't do anything towards my PhD. I really just focused on the babies, getting myself better. I had cesarean section, so I really needed to prioritize my, recovery. And I did not even look at my thesis or my PhD or anything. And people sometimes are quite surprised to hear that. But for me, that was a choice I was prepared to make. And yeah, it was hard coming back and picking things back up. But, I think it would have been equally hard to try and navigate all that and try and recover from the cesarean and try and bond with my baby. And, it's like you pick your hard, right? You pick your hard.
Mm-hmm.
So for
Yeah.
me, I was quite happy to, come back and figure it out when I got back. But at least I had that time off to just really enjoy what was happening. So just like you, I was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I am going to relax and enjoy this time off and enjoy my sons.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about your support system. You mentioned that your mom was there in the beginning when you had your daughter and then came back towards the end of your maternity leave. So I assume that your mum would be one of the people within that support system, but who are the other people who made it possible for you to pursue your PhD?
Um, I like that question too. I think I'll say this every time. Um, because while it may look like I'm doing it all or I was able to do a lot, at the same time, nothing could be further from the truth because it took an entire village. My husband, I would say, was my biggest supporter. So, I usually tell people this is the first day I met my husband, I told him I wanted to get a PhD, and I wasn't even doing a master's yet. But I know, right? He took on that dream as his dream. And he did everything that was necessary to help me get to that finish line. And so this degree is, it's not just mine, it's
Both of yours. Yeah.
exactly. And so like he needed like whenever he needed to take on our daughter like by himself, doing the routines, picking me up, taking me places, like even when we went even when I went to do my defense, because I live in a different province from where my university is, and we
Yeah.
all went down together to the defense. So he's been my biggest supporter. I don't think I would have done this, been able to do this without his support. My parents were also incredible. So I had talked about my mom and how she left everything in Nigeria to come be with me when I had my baby for 3 months, came at the end of maternity leave for another 4 to 6 weeks, I think, just to make sure I had the time that I needed to work on my research. My dad was also a big supporter because we were able like so my dad has a PhD as well, and he was my first example of someone with a PhD, and we would talk ideas, talk strategy, deal with this question this way, and we would joke about how he was my internal supervisor
Oh,
because
wow.
we would talk a lot about it. And then my in-laws as well were really supportive. They would encourage me, and just be there like whenever I needed them. So I had all of these people. I also had colleagues as well. I had a particular classmate I was close to. She also had a baby doing her PhD as well. So we could like relate on that point. I also had a couple other friends that I could talk to as well who also were either had done their PhDs or were in the process of getting their PhDs. And so I had this entire village around me that either physically supported me or, emotionally connected and encouraged me. And I couldn't have done any of this without them.
Oh gosh, that sounds like an amazing village you had there. And, it just testifies to the fact that doing a PhD is not a single solo journey. Like you've got a whole village behind you, a whole village like propping you up and, supporting you when it's tough and being there when you need that kind of practical support. So it's amazing to hear the level of support that you've had. So imagine if a mama listening to this podcast, maybe they're listening and thinking, oh my goodness, I'd love to have support like that, but I don't. My family's not supportive, or I don't have friends who understand this journey, or, my partner is not supportive. Like what advice would you give to other mamas who might not have that same level of support?
So thank you for that question. I would say two things actually. The first one is going out and building your own village. So I had shared about, my husband, my parents, and how, that support sort of came naturally, like from my family. And sometimes we may not get that naturally. So I think one of the things I would advise is to go out and build your own village. There will be people who actually care about you. They may not understand your research and understand, the nitty-gritty of what you're doing. But you can still build your own village, one or two people. Also, it's also, I think, good to speak out and ask for help. And just be more vocal about the struggles that you're facing. I think that's one. The other thing is to advocate for yourself. So especially if you don't have a lot of support or a big village around you, if you need to ask your supervisor for extensions, ask your committee members for more meetings, or just let people know that this deadline might be doable for somebody else, but due to your personal circumstances, you might not be able to meet these deadlines, right? So definitely trying to go out there, build your own village, and then advocating for yourself.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good point because quite often, as scholarly mamas, as women, as mothers, as general, we don't like to ask for help. Like,
Yes.
we seem to equate help with failure. Like, clearly you need help because you're not coping on your own. But actually, it's the smart people who are out here saying, you know what? I actually can't do all these things.
Hmm.
And I certainly can't do them all well. And I certainly can't do them all at the same time. And
Yeah.
so I'm going to delegate where I need to delegate. I'm going
Yeah.
to ask for help where I need it. I'm going to seek that support where I need it because that allows me to be the best version of me. Like, I am
Exactly.
not here burning myself out trying to do everything. I'm seeking help where I need it. And again, that's more a sign of strength than it is a failure. And I think I kind of wish that more scholarly mamas would hear that message that it's okay to ask for help. It's not,
Yeah.
you're not a failure if you need support. Like, that is a smart move. That is a smart move. So I'm happy that you said that. So when we were talking before, you mentioned that being a mama to your 3-year-old daughter is the absolute joy of your life. So can you tell us how motherhood has influenced your journey of scholarship and research?
I think it has made it more real. So I'm getting my PhD is in sustainability management, climate change, environmental impact of trade. And I think being a mom actually made it so that it's no longer just theory for me. So I actually started to think about the world that we're living for um for our children and their children, like, and generations to come. I mean, it's those are the things that you hear when you're in this field, but it became practical for me. It's about legacy. It's about the kind of world I'm leaving behind for my daughter and her children. So that um being a mom definitely changed that for me. I started to become more intentional about my work. I'm more driven to make sure that the research I'm doing has real world impact. Um, and it's one thing to care about climate change as an abstract issue, but it's another thing when you're actually raising children who will be here longer than you, and it hits differently. So yeah, that's the big way in which being a mother changed my scholarship.
That is so powerful. So powerful. Because yeah, I think legacy is a huge part of motherhood. And the fact that we want to leave a part of us here, but we want to make sure that we're also leaving a future or leaving a part of us that contributes to the future of our children. And that is in so many different contexts. But I love how you've turn a concept that could feel very abstract because it doesn't feel like in the here and now, turn
Hmm.
that concept of climate change and the things that we really care about on a global scale into actually, I'm doing this for my kid. I'm doing
Yeah,
this for my own child and my
yeah.
child's future. And that just makes it such a powerful what's the word? I can't even think of a word now, but like it just really amplifies the importance of that and why the contribution that we make right now is so important, particularly for somebody like you who did a whole PhD in this topic. Like it just, yeah, it just elevates that for me. So I can imagine, like, even thinking about, doing this as a mama, doing this with a daughter, I can imagine that things like time management and energy management may have been really crucial for you. So, what are some of the practical strategies that you've developed along the way that have helped you to make progress in your PhD, obviously all the way to the end, with that limitation of time?
Yes. I think the biggest shift was in my mindset. So I had to go from thinking, oh, I wish I and from wishing that I was a traditional PhD student who had all the time in the world every day, all day to focus on my research. And so I had to change my mindset from that, okay, I don't have all day, but I can still get work done in 3 to 5 hours every day. So I think the biggest thing was that mindset shift. Um, and just trying to look for different ways where I could find, 2 hours here, 3 hours here to work on my research, and knowing that with consistency, it will all add up if I use my time well. So using my time well was also a big thing. I started to use app blockers on my phone because social media is such a big time suck, right? Um, so I did that, and I would block off like apps, like sometimes all the internet on my phone for certain hours while I was studying, and I'll sometimes do the same on my computer as well. So just download all the papers I wanted to read and just work like locally and not have any access to the internet. So that was a big one. Another thing was planning everything, and like so I had like shared earlier what my daily schedule looked like, right? So planning everything, planning what I wanted to do every day, versus going to the library or going to the office and not knowing what I was going to try to achieve that day. So not being aimless with like my time. And I guess that also like speaks towards using my time well, right? The other big thing was protecting my weekend. So I would work sometimes, I think I would work Sunday nights all the way. So Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday afternoon, and then Friday nights, Saturdays, I wouldn't do any research. So that was also big. So I actually had weekends to rest. There were definitely times when I had to go to the library on Saturdays and like spend the whole day there when I was like on a time crunch or like had a deadline and all of that. But for the most part, I'll say for like 70, 80% of the time, my weekends were off limits. And so those were the big things. I wasn't working around the clock because if you do that, you're gonna burn out faster, right? Um, and I mean, I'm not perfect. So there were definitely times when I would like, oh yeah, I'm not blocking my Instagram today, and I would spend like 30 minutes scrolling on Instagram, my 3 hour block, right? But I mean, I try to do like apply the 80/20 rule to definitely be on the ball 80% of the time.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love how you have not just given yourself grace in terms of like time off and things, but in terms of not being perfect, even with the best intentions. Like, we are human beings and we are juggling a lot, and we also have natural rhythms. And as women,
Yeah.
especially, like, there's certain times in a month where I knew like I would be really productive. And then other times where I'm like, Michelle, did you do anything today? What did you actually? And a lot of times when you look back, there's a pattern to that. There's a pattern to that behavior. And so it's about really getting to know your own self, your own productivity, your own rhythms, your own schedules, and knowing when you can actually really be quite productive, and maybe there are other times when you're not. And also, like, do you remember the days when, like, back in like generations ago, it feels like, when you could literally sit down for 10 to 12 hours of a day
Yeah.
and just work? And you just
Mhm.
think, like, as a mom, that is like not most people's reality. So,
No.
this idea of just being consistent with the planning, the scheduling, and being realistic about what is actually feasible and what can you accomplish in that time is, yeah, you just have to be realistic with it,
Yeah.
and give yourself that grace, like you said. Like, there will be times where you'll crack on, and they will, and also, like, depends on if you're a deadline driven person or not. I am very much a deadline driven person. Would you say you're a deadline driven person?
Yep.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought so. And those are the times where you literally will just pull it out of the water. Like, you will just get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, talking about approaches that have been game changers for you, were there any particular ones that you want to mention? Any additional ones?
Yeah. I would say um the first one, I think we already kind of broached on it like earlier. Asking for help. So even like this is like specific to like your research and like your PhD work, is no one expects you to have it all figured out. That's the reason why you're a student. You're not a professor once you get into a PhD program. You're right. You're a student for a reason because you still have a lot to learn. So asking for help rather than like um sitting with problems for or like if you run into issues or run into bottlenecks rather than just like sitting with it and not asking for help. It doesn't even have to be you going to like your supervisor or your committee members. It could be you talking it out with a colleague, right? Or a friend. Or it could be a lot of different things. But asking for help, I think, was game changing for me. And this also leads to the second um tip, I would say, is talking to your supervisors and your committee members early. So seek them often, seek them early, because a lot of the decision at the end of the day of them uh, deciding whether or not you're ready to graduate is also part of it is also perception of how much work you've done, how often they've seen you, how often you've shown up. So you need to make sure that you're maintaining. It's not even like a perception like, oh, it's fake or it's not real, but you need to let them see that you're doing the work. You need to show them your progress, right? You need to talk to them often. Um, that was something I had to learn the hard way because when I came back from maternity leave, I would go for weeks or months not talking to my supervisors. But then I changed that around and started to I had a meeting with my supervisor. I think we started off at like every 2 weeks and then every week, right? And he was seeing like every time I came to him, I was making an improvement, adding in something extra. I was also having multiple meetings. I had like 3, 4 meetings with my committee members in like a year, in the span of a year. And I would show them my work on slides and they would see everything. And so by the time I got to my defense, for example, they had seen a variation of my actual defense slides 2 times, right? So it wasn't, they had to ask me questions already. I was prepared for the type of questions that they were asking. And it just, I know that in their minds, they were like, this person has done the work. She's ready to get this degree. So ask for help, talk to your supervisors and committee members early and often. And then the third one, which is something I discovered a year ago when I started the PhD race, was find a creative outlet. So that honestly I started PhD race, I was in February of 2024, so last year. And I was frustrated. I wanted to quit, to be honest with you. But I was like, open an Instagram account and like share your journey. Who knows? And so periodically, when I would get frustrated or tired or just wanted to do something else, I would go on Canva, which is the program I use to like prepare slide post, right? And I'll just like share a post, come up with a post it, come up with a reel, post it, and I actually found that people actually enjoyed like hearing, my experience. I met I've met like so many wonderful people on there. The PhD community. I just want to shout out the PhD community on Instagram. It's
Yes.
beautiful. It is, right? You're part of that community, and um, that creative outlet definitely played a big part for me, finding somewhere to be able to creatively express myself outside of the research that I was doing. Doing something like, even though it was still PhD focused, right? But I had that creative outlet. So yeah, the three things: ask for help, talk to your committee members early and often, and then find a creative outlet. There's definitely more things I could talk about, but I thought those were really big things for me.
I completely agree with you. Like those three things are so key, and especially the creative outlet, I think is underestimated. It's because everybody knows, like, asking for help and connecting with your supervisor. But I think that creative outlet is
Mm-hmm.
so underestimated, the impact that has, because
Yeah.
it does so many things. It helps other people, which is the point of it, but it really kind of reminds you, it's like it's a constant reminder of why you're doing what you're doing, especially on
Yes.
those really tough days where all you want to do is just give up and walk away. And it gives you a sense of accountability. It gives you that, like you're showing up for a reason.
Yeah.
And, that gives you so much motivation, so much internal motivation. So I completely agree. And I started my blog when I was in the middle of my PhD as well. And that gave me so much internal joy. Oh, so much joy. So I can completely relate. But then there's three things that you mentioned here that you probably don't remember saying them, but I wrote them down because I thought they were so powerful as well. When you were talking about the connection with the supervisor and the committee, you mentioned these three words.
Okay.
The first one I wrote down was presence. So being
Mm.
present, being connecting, and actually, not just like FaceTime, like showing face, but actually really building those connections so that you're not a stranger to them. You're not a stranger to your committee or your supervisors. The second one I wrote down here that you said was perception. That
Mm-hmm.
it does matter. Like people need to see that you're committed and you genuinely are putting in the work, because at the end of the day, that's what this journey is about. Nobody's going to do your PhD for you. Nobody's going to come to the rescue. You have to put in the work. And so, it's important that the people who are assessing this and the people
Mm-hmm.
who are supporting you in this can see that as well. So perception.
Exactly.
And then the third thing that you said was progress. So for them to see the progress that you're making, but also for you to be to see that too, and to almost be reminded that you are going somewhere, you are taking strides forward, and you've got a whole team of people who can remind you of that when you're tempted to forget, that you probably think, oh, I'm not, what have I done? And they remind you, look how far you've come. Like, do you remember at that
Yeah.
first meeting what you presented and then what you've presented?
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's about the presence, the perception, and the progress. And you mentioned those three things, and I just wanted to kind of highlight those because I think they're really powerful. And so we all know that academic environments are not often designed with parents in mind. So I'm just wondering, did you encounter any particular barriers or challenges as a mama while you were on your PhD journey?
To be honest with you, not exactly. And I would say this is a testament to the really incredible institution that I got my PhD from. So, University of Waterloo. I also got my master's from there. And they have a system that kind of supports graduate students as they transition into motherhood. So you actually have you're allowed to go on maternity leave. I know some of it is also like government imposed, but you're allowed to go on maternity leave for however you can take 1 term, 2 terms, 3 terms, so they actually support that. They also created a bursary. So when you do go on maternity leave, they'll give you, yeah, I know, right?
Wow.
They'll give you some funding while you're away as well. And then they very easily provided the paperwork, and I needed to be able to get like employment insurance from the government. And I didn't know all of that existed until like I had to go through it. So I would say that when it came to me taking time off for maternity leave, I felt really supported. I also even felt supported by because I had to be a teaching assistant all the way until my baby came. Because she came in April, so like towards the end of the term, and I was working with a female professor as well, who was also a mother. I mean, I feel like going through like my journey, I see the importance of having representation, right?
Yeah.
And so I was meant to like grade, I don't know how many, maybe 100 or 120 students the week before my baby was
Oh,
due. And I like
wow.
shared with her that I was expecting, she had no idea because I hadn't shared with her that I was expecting a baby because we're just coming out of COVID at that time. So everything was still online. So we actually never physically met. So she didn't know I was pregnant, right?
Yeah.
I shared with her that I was, um, that my baby was due, and oh yeah, but I could get it done, sort of thing, right? Like not wanting to disappoint her, but she was like, no, don't worry, I'll do it. Don't. don't, you know what I mean? Like, don't bother about it. You're about to have a baby for crying out loud. Don't, it was things like
Wow.
that. My supervisor was also supportive. I shared earlier about the type of advice that she gave me. So I really, I know I'm not answering your question about like challenges, and I think I like the idea of flipping it around because
Yeah.
I really didn't experience challenges. I actually felt supported.
That is incredible. And shout out to this university. And you know what? I do feel that there's a lot of negativity around this, around, doing PhD as a mum. It feels really hard. And it is hard. And we can't ignore the systemic challenges that exist for many people. But
Yes.
they are examples of people who have felt very supported, who've had the most amazing supervisors. I'm one of those people. I really am so grateful for the supervisors that I had and people who really supported me and understood, what I was navigating. And it just makes the world of difference. And, not that you're doing your PhD for your supervisors, but it honestly can be a make or break situation for your PhD. When you have supportive supervisors as a scholarly mama, to have that amazing support, it really is that push and that, I don't even know if push, but maybe a lift that you need to really get through this journey because, it's tough. This journey's tough. And any little support, ease, lift, it just makes such a difference. And it could be the difference between completing that PhD or not completing that PhD. And if anybody's listening to this and you are, you've got that support, you've got that amazing supportive university or supervisor or an environment, just really let them know how grateful you are for that. Like express that gratitude. And for those who don't have that support, advocate for yourself. See if there are ways that you can raise your concerns in your university and see if there's any scope for shared learning, maybe from some of the other universities who are actually doing this really well. So, no, I love that you flipped that question. I love the fact that you've been able to share a positive experience of what navigating PhD life as a mama is like and the support that you had from your, not just your supervisor, but also the university structure as a whole. I think that is amazing. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
So I want to take you like to a place of imagination, like going back to your younger self. What advice would you give her if you had to start this PhD as a mama all over again?
Oh, I would tell her to believe in herself. Um, that belief is really important because there'll be days, there'll be months where she wouldn't, feel like believing in herself, where circumstances around her would make her doubt her strengths, her abilities, her intelligence, her perseverance, but to just keep believing in herself. I would tell her that she's capable of so much more than she thinks. I, yeah, she's so much stronger, so much more capable. I think I would also tell her to take opportunities that light her up, and not just taking opportunities for the sake of taking them, but that a lot of different opportunities will come her way, and that she should take them. Sometimes it may even be something small or something that externally you would look down on, but like to take them because they seem exciting, they seem interesting to her, and that all of those opportunities that she does take a chance on will add up, and make a difference in the future. I'll tell her to ask for help early instead of sitting in problems for months. There's just a tendency to, feel like, oh yeah, I can figure it out by myself. But
Yeah.
there's some things that you need somebody else's perspective on. Like sometimes the solution might be something really simple that you just don't have the perspective to see, right? So I'll tell her that. And then the final thing I will tell her is that she wouldn't finish on the timeline that she planned, but her journey will be richer, deeper, and more impactful than she ever imagined.
Oh, I love that. I love, especially that last one. Like, oh my goodness. If someone had told me that it was going to take me 8 years to finish my PhD part time when I started and I was going to have, you know, a pandemic in the middle of that and obviously our maternity breaks as well. But like,
Mhm.
I don't know. Like I would be like, that timeline seems really, really long. But reflecting on it now, I think that exactly what you said there is true. That I would say to my younger self, it may take longer than you think, but you're going to be better for it. You're going to be better for it. You're going to learn so much on the journey and just embrace that. Just embrace the
Mhm.
journey. And I guess one of the reasons why one of the things that helps that to be a little bit easier is you're not putting your life on hold for it.
Oh
I
yeah.
feel like when you do that, there's so much pressure to be done because like everything's on hold. You just want to get back to living.
Yeah.
But when you're able to enjoy your weekends, when you're able to enjoy your family life, when you're able to work and earn some money and the
Mhm.
things that just allow you to tick everything else along while this PhD is happening in the background, it relieves the pressure of feeling like you need to finish it ASAP. Really makes such a difference, isn't it?
I agree. I agree, and I feel like that is definitely. Sorry, I feel like I'm about to say something really funny, but if I have a, one of my biggest tips is before you start a PhD, get married.
Oh my
You can
gosh.
cut this out if you want. You can cut
I
this out if
won't.
you want, because not everybody agrees. not every, not everybody agrees with that. But seriously, I didn't feel like I was putting my life on hold. So when I started my PhD, I was for the first 3 years, I wasn't working, and I wasn't like working full time. I would take on side gigs
Yeah.
here, you know, I do talk about that on Instagram as well, and how that like enriched my, because I knew I didn't want to stay in academia.
Yeah.
So I would take on like I took on some extra projects, right? And that helped. But then I started working full time 2 years ago.
Mm.
And that also made such a huge difference, because I knew at the back of my mind that I needed to finish PhD, when I needed to finish it. But I was earning better money than when I was working just as a teaching assistant. I felt like I was making some progress. I was gaining work experience. I was doing all of the things, right? And it just didn't feel like I was waiting on this degree to start my life. So it makes a world of, like I was able to give birth to my daughter, right? I felt like if I wasn't doing a PhD, right, all of the things that I had done are things I would have done
Yeah.
regardless.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it just made the experience so much better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I definitely hear that. So, just thinking about the people listening to this podcast who are, often mamas who are in the throes of it all. They're in the mist, they're in the valleys, right? And they may want to hear like some tips from you of how you navigated this. So what key takeaways, tips would you want to share and offer our listeners who may be currently in the pits of this all?
Um, I would say give yourself grace. Is the big thing. Is you're doing a PhD is hard. Being a mother is harder.
Yeah.
You're doing two really hard things at the same time. Give yourself grace. I don't even know how many percentage of PhD students are mothers, but I know it's definitely a small percentage. Also a really small percentage of people in the world who do PhDs. So you're very like you occupy a really small
Yeah.
circle. You're doing really hard things at the same time. So give yourself grace. You may not be able to do things in the same timeline, the same time frame as traditional PhD students. I don't like to refer to make that reference, but
Yeah.
yes, you may not be able to get, full days of work on your research, but you're raising kids, you're raising the next generation of humans, and you need to give yourself grace and acknowledge that. So you always need to remind yourself of the fact that um, you're doing your best, in every role and every capacity that you have been blessed with. And I think that's the biggest thing. Another big thing is also to enjoy your journey. So I think one of the, and I honestly, I would say maybe I enjoyed my first year, in my PhD, or maybe the first 6 months, because COVID hit
Oh, yes.
went into my PhD. And I just started to feel that disconnect from like my research and like school and all that. But I really enjoyed the last year of my PhD. Because I kind of spoke to myself. I would constantly speak to myself about the fact that this is something I'm not going to do a PhD again. This is, I know there's people who have, multiple PhDs, but this is an experience that I shouldn't just rush through it. And, a lot of the time I know, I speak for myself, I'm guilty of like rushing through processes or, specific periods of life because I just want to get to the end of it. But enjoy the process. So
Mm-hmm.
enjoying the process doesn't mean that the process is going to always be easy or fun or exciting. But like even in the hard times, you should still kind of see through and not rush through the process. So yes, those are the big things.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Like, honestly, it has been so good to have you on this show. And we followed each other on Instagram. And I am just so grateful for Instagram. I'm not advertising for them. I'm just saying that I'm so grateful for the opportunity to connect with people.
Yeah.
And, one of the best bits for me is just having these one-on-one chats and just really getting to know each other and sharing our experiences. And that's been the highlight for me of being on social media and just connecting with so many amazing, amazing scholarly mamas. And so speaking of social media and online, where can people find you if they want to get in touch?
You can find me on Instagram on the PhD Race. I also send out a monthly newsletter called Letters from the PhD Race, where I share longer reflections and behind the scenes glimpses of my journey. And also I like offer resources and tips as well for everyone like who's on that list journey. So those are the two places that you can find me. Yeah, and I hope that everyone who's listening to this at least tries to connect. If you do find my page on Instagram, send me a DM and let me know where you listen to the podcast.
Oh, that'll be amazing. That'll be absolutely
Yeah.
amazing. But yeah, I am so happy to have had you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me. I was really excited to this and I absolutely enjoyed it. This is my first time being a guest on a podcast. So thank you for the experience. And I absolutely loved and enjoyed this conversation. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for tuning in to the Mrs. Mummy PhD podcast. I hope you've enjoyed the episode, and if you did and you want in on this movement, please head over to mrsmummyphd.com or scholarlymamas.com. If you want to do your PhD well without sacrificing yourself or those you love dearest, then you need your hands on all the ways that we can work together to transform your journey of scholarly motherhood from one of overwhelm, disillusionment and burnout to one of scholarly joy and purposeful success. Make sure you head over to mrsmummyphd.com. I'll leave a link in the show notes. I cannot wait to work with you. Remember, Mama, these are our journeys of becoming.